Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Photography Chat. We're on to episode 35 of season 2, and we have Liza on with us in here in a moment. Hope everyone's been having a good week. Staying out of the rain in Ontario. Where is it here? Perfect. Chat there. Hello. How's it going?
Hey, I wasn't sure if it was working or not.
Yeah, it looks like we're working here.
Awesome.
How's your week been going? Uh-oh. Buffering. Let's see if she comes back here. We're having some technical difficulties. Okay. Oh. Okay, let's try and get this working again. Sorry everyone, we'll get the
Okay,
technical.
there we go.
Perfect, there we go.
I think I
Well,
got disconnected by accident, so
it happens. Technology. It's just the
yeah.
word.
It's also my first time doing a live, so I don't know how any of this works.
It's kind of like a FaceTime, except people are watching.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's been kind of fun though. So it's like there's people that'll tune in and hear us chat about whatever we end up talking about, and in the chat window they can ask us questions and
Yeah,
interact with us. So
awesome.
it's like an interactive podcast.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited for it. This is a unique opportunity. I definitely wasn't expecting it when visiting BC, so it's awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting running into you there. If you don't
Yeah.
mind, why don't you just take a moment just to introduce yourself to the folks there?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Lisa. I have been a photographer for some time now. I started off in high school just taking classes and I really fell in love with it. Originally, I'm coming from a visual arts background, so I used to draw and paint as a kid a lot. Um, yeah, and then in high school got into photography. Eventually, university happened and I dropped photography. And then maybe about 2 years ago, I think everyone was kind of jumping on that film wave, and I decided to do it as well. And I don't regret it one bit. I happened to just purchase a film camera on a whim, and ever since then, I've been shooting film pretty much nonstop. Yeah, and it's been an interesting journey. It's been a weird kind of jump, but it's a good one. I think it's taught me a lot, and I think it's definitely helped me develop a lot as a photographer, and I'm excited to continue pursuing this hobby.
So
So,
you say it was a weird jump. Like how in your mind was it kind of a weird jump?
so I think definitely coming from a couple of years of digital photography, it was obviously weird not seeing the photo right away, and it was the first camera that I purchased, it was a very old Yashica. It was like literally just called autofocus. And I love that camera. I think it taught me a lot as a photographer, and I was super sad when it broke on me.
Oh,
Like I actually cried that day because it was just so upsetting. Um, but just not seeing that photo right away when you're, shooting, it was difficult to know what the images will look like. And definitely my first few rolls were kind of frustrating because it was pricey and it was still just me trying to figure it out if I like this or not. And it was like, oh, I love this one photo, but this other photo just looks so horrible. Or like, oh, I wish this photo, I wish I could fix it. I wish I could, make it clear. And the fact that I couldn't do anything, it was, it was frustrating, I would say, the first few times that I shot. And that was that weird kind of jump into it. Um, yeah, I would say that was probably the most difficult part of for me.
And how long ago was that?
That was about 2 years ago. So I took a break from photography. So I used to shoot a lot in high school just because I took the photography courses. So I was shooting on a daily basis pretty much or doing something photography related. And then in university, I just sort of stopped. I didn't take any classes for photography. My university didn't really offer many options. So I went to York for psychology, and only in like my last year did I discover we even have a film lab and like we have any sort of courses really, but I never took anything. So I didn't shoot, I just didn't have the time for it. And I take my camera on vacations, but just I think it was like a lack of inspiration and not having those set projects given to you. It was difficult for me to shoot, so I didn't pick up my camera for about 3 to 4 years. And then, yeah, just kind of, I think I saw a lot of people just buying film cameras and disposable cameras, and I'm like, I don't want a disposable one. So I ended up buying the Yashica for like $50 and called it a day. And yeah,
And then
it's
it
been
died.
a it's been a switch to an F100 after that, and some other cameras here and there, but the F100 has been my stable one.
Yeah, so that's kind of how all of this happened. I noticed your F100 when you were in the parking
Yeah,
lot, the Othello
yeah,
tunnel, and we got to talking about that. It's a very distinct camera and one of my favorites for sure.
for sure. I purchased that one very last minute as well. I did some research on it, but I just loved how the photos looked from it. Like anything that I ever saw, I loved it. And it sort of met all my needs. I'm a very lazy film photographer. I still shoot on auto, like, sorry, not on auto, on aperture priority. So that had to be part of the camera. I shoot manual very rarely, and I don't want to get shamed for it as a film photographer, but
Well, it's
it is
not
what it is.
a shame thing because I think like anyone that shames someone for it's like, oh, if you're not shooting manual and you're not a photographer, should just go get fucked. Like they're
Yeah,
that's kind of a dick thing to say. Like,
yeah,
um, that being said, I completely shoot as lazy as possible all the time. Like if the F100 had an auto mode on it, I would use the auto mode.
yeah,
I kind of like the F80 for that. Or no, not the F80, the F75.
yeah,
F75 has an auto mode, but the F80 is very similar to the F100. And then the F100 is like a baby F5, which is really cool. Uh,
yeah,
and like why images look really good on the F100, it uses the same matrix metering and it has the same autofocus engine as the F5 does. So
yeah,
uh, it's a very cool camera to have.
yeah. I purchased it. It was actually before another trip to BC, and I got it off. I remember just looking on Kijiji and like what my options would be for a film camera, and because I've shot with Nikon before, so I had the Nikon lenses. I didn't want to go through the whole switch over, which I still had to do, but it just kind of worked out best for me. And I remember it was like maybe 2 weeks prior to the trip, and I was like, I gotta get a camera. Like my Yashica broke. I need this camera. And I just read F100 and I was like, this is all I need. And it was like this crazy hunt for this camera. I was about to order it on eBay from Japan or something like that, but I just like I had to get it. And I think at 1 a.m. or something, I was going through Kijiji and someone posted and I was like, oh my God, I need your camera right now. Like I'll buy it. And I bought it the next day. And the guy is actually a local photographer and he's also super talented. Um, I follow him on Instagram. He's traveled a lot and his photos, he does a lot of street people photography and it's absolutely fantastic. So it was nice knowing that it came from another photographer, not like just some like a random person, but
You can give his Instagram a shout out if you want. That's totally cool.
um I don't remember it off the top of my head now.
Oh
His
no.
name is Sydney though.
Okay.
Oh, I think his Instagram is adgrain or something like that.
Okay.
So he's a local Toronto photographer. If you guys can check him out, he's awesome. Let him know that his camera is still alive and doing well.
They're great cameras. Like it's yeah, the F100 is you can't go wrong with it. And I'm a little partial to the Nikon system just because like the lens ecosystem for it is so broad. And
Yeah,
even though I only really ever shoot with a 50 mil, that's pretty much all I seem to shoot with.
yeah. When I shot, well, primarily because of traveling and stuff, like that's when I shoot the most. On my digital camera, so my first ever camera was a D5100, and I
Oh,
still have it. I think it's an amazing like beginner's camera. I'm very stupid, and when I was younger, I had the option. The camera was given to me as a gift from my dad, and we came to the store, and he was like, "Do you want the D7000 or do you want D5100?" And he was like, "Just get the D7000. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it." And I was like, "No, no, no, I'll just go for the cheaper option." And
kind of kick yourself about it now.
yeah, I regret it because the D7000 was a full frame camera
Oh, okay.
versus the 5100 it wasn't. So,
Oh, you mean the D700?
yeah, sorry, the
Yeah.
D700. So I fucked it up for myself completely because I could have just been getting full frame lenses this whole time, but decided not to do it. But it is what it is. I have my full frame lenses now, but I shot a lot with a 35 millimeter and I love that lens. Like I thought it was such a great versatile lens.
Yeah, that
But
35 mil
it,
DX lens is a great one.
yeah, it unfortunately doesn't work on the F100. It leaves like a just a straight
Yeah,
circle.
you get a vignette because it's a crop lens. Uh,
Yeah.
if you do decide to go down the digital route again with your full frame lenses, because I had the exact same thing happen to me as like I used to shoot with a D300, and then I got into film, and I got kind of pissed because when I would travel, I would bring like the digital kit and the film kit, so I'd have like digital body, digital lenses, then all.
Yeah.
I got kind of tired of that, like hauling around double the gear. The Nikon D610 is a really
Mhm.
good full frame camera that you can find fairly inexpensively now if you wanted
Really?
full frame. You should be able to pick up like a decent D610 for like 600 to 800. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. I've looked at that camera before, and there was a point when I hit a point with my digital photography where I was like, do I go full frame or do I stay just crop frame? And because it was so expensive to go full frame, and that was specifically the camera that I wanted, I didn't end up going that route. And I think that was also sort of the time when like my inspiration just went downhill. So it was yeah, I still ended up going full frame, but it is what it is. It's I
Yeah.
got I don't even know what I use now. I think my most common lens now with the I have a 50 millimeter, but I don't shoot 50 millimeter often. I think I use like 24-70 or 24-75 or 85,
Oh, the tele.
whatever. Uh, I don't know. I know there's an expensive version of that lens. I went with a cheaper
Mm.
version of it. I actually bought it from a really interesting gentleman who he shot a lot of like fashion shows or something like that. Like I don't remember his name off the top of my head now, but I remember him telling me he's done like different fashion shows and traveled across the world. And I told him how my first camera was a Yashica, and I think he said like Andy Warhol used to shoot Yashicas or something like that, and he's like met all these people, and I'm like, wow, it's an honor to have this lens from somebody like you.
That's cool. That was
Yeah.
one thing I do miss about Toronto is like the people you'd meet when you're buying stuff. Because I bought a lot of stuff off of Kijiji, and like there were some like real weirdos, but there was also some like really really interesting people
Yeah,
that I'm still friends with now from those experiences.
for sure. Yeah, it's a hit or a miss. They're like I find anytime I'm buying film equipment, it's always a pretty good experience. I haven't had any bad experiences, thankfully. Um, but yeah, I think the film community is pretty big here, but at the same time, it's like a quiet but big community.
Yeah, it is a much bigger community than what we've got out here in BC. I kind of miss it a bit. It also made it easier for selling things because selling stuff online here kind of sucks.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of stuff I want to sell, which I was like, fuck, I wish I sold it before I left Toronto because it would have been a lot easier. But hindsight, right?
Yeah. I'm surprised by that because I would think that BC, just because of the views and everything, you have more people shooting film.
Uh, I've ran into more digital shooters for
Hmm.
sure. Film's picking up a bit more. Lots of film shortages here, which has been um, sucky. It's hard to find any color film right now.
Really?
Yeah, it's like
That's
everywhere.
interesting.
The color 35 mil, color Polaroid, like it's hard.
Huh.
Photo had like a healthy stock of color 120, but I think that's like mostly tapped out now.
Oh.
Um,
I think I've stopped by their shop actually on that trip prior to like meeting you. I got a Minolta from them, like a just automatic regular Minolta.
oh, the
Um,
AF1.
I think it's just like Freedom Zoom
Okay.
105, something like that. I wanted something super basic because my biggest issue with the F100 is how heavy it is. And it starts off fine when you're just like carrying it around, and then like halfway through, especially when you're traveling, you just want to throw it out. Like there's been moments when I just wanted to throw it out or like leave it somewhere. So
It's
it's
Chunky Boy.
it's a heavy one, and there are times when I do, to be honest, want to switch over to something more lightweight, but then it's also tough.
If you want something that's a little bit lightweight but behaves basically identically to the F100, look for an F80.
I've considered looking into those. I haven't found one in person, but maybe I should look into it.
Yeah, because the F80 functionally is almost identical to the F100. It's just a
Yeah,
plastic body instead of a metal body. So it's a lot
yeah.
lighter and it's a little smaller, but all your lenses will work with it just the same. Like if you're looking for something that's a little easier to travel with, the F80 is a great camera for that.
Hmm.
Um, the only annoying thing is that it uses the CR123 battery, so you got to buy those like big, chunky, expensive batteries.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can find a, a grip for it that uses AA batteries, and then it's pretty straightforward. But if you want it to be like light as possible, without the grip is the way to go.
Good
Um,
to know. I'll check it out for sure.
is that no F80 is not well
I
Japanese
I
version and
I
Canada
think
version. Oh, sorry,
I
go ahead.
don't know if they have different versions.
They
Oh,
did. So the
actually, I don't know.
N80 would have been like the American version. In Canada, it was the F80, and in Japan, it was the F80.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
America gets some like weird models compared to what we do, but
Interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah, the F80 is a great camera, and you can usually find them fairly cheap. Like I used to have a real bad problem just buying cheap cameras off of Kijiji in Toronto because there was just so many of them, and then I would just
Yeah.
give them to friends and stuff. And so it's like I've probably bought like at least 40 or 50 F80s
Oh
in the
my
last
God.
4 years, and I've just like given them away to people. And um, yeah, there's a dude there. Like if you're interested in one, there's a Kijiji dude I know of. I could text him and see if he's got any. He usually has them in stock, and they're like 80 to 100 bucks off of him.
I'll let you know. I'm gonna think it over. I've considered reselling my F100 and just upgrading to a better like version of the same thing. Just because my my viewfinder, the lens in it, it's shifted a bit and it's
Uh,
tilted, and I've taken it to downtown camera and I'm like, is this a problem? Like, can you guys repair this? And they just said like just leave it as is. Repairing it is gonna cost you like 500 bucks. So
yeah, and
yeah.
that's about like to get another one is like 500 bucks too. And even with a janky,
Yeah.
like you can still pretty probably sell it for like a good chunk. And
Yeah. Well, I
uh,
got it for like 300 bucks, which was a pretty good deal, but it was
that's a
a
crazy.
year ago. I
Yeah,
mean,
because they're so expensive now.
probably go now. I hate that like certain things just go up so much in value, and it's like it was the exact same thing with film. I was looking, even when purchasing the Minolta, I was looking at just like a small, easy to carry, like point and shoot film camera. And like people are selling them for like $100 now. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Because back when I, like 2 years ago, when I got into photography, they were like 30 bucks, 20 bucks. You could find the stuff for fairly cheap. And now it's like 60, 70, 80. Some cameras are going for so much, and it's kind of surprising and a bit unfortunate.
It is a little crazy. Like I mean, I when I bought my F5 in Toronto in 20, I think it was like late 2017, early 2018. I got it for like 250 bucks,
Oh wow.
and now they're like 600 and up, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, why? It's a $250 camera. It shouldn't be that much money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but they're all expensive, and even like my F100s, like those, I keep seeing them like listed for like 400 or 500 bucks now.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because no
I
one
know
makes.
buying things from Japan is good, so maybe if I find one from Japan for cheaper, maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, see, I have lots of friends that buy from Japan, and I know logically that makes the most sense, but I'm a very impatient person, so it's like if I want to buy something, I'm just like I want to give someone the money and then like have it right then. So
Yeah.
I try and track down that stuff. Like I ended up buying a digital this week because I love my D610. It's a great camera, but I hate using it anywhere outside of a studio because it's just kind of. It's not that it's too big, but I just kind of find it a bit annoying. And a friend has been trying to convince me that the Fujifilm cameras are great cameras, and
Hmm.
he's been trying to like sell me on them for like years now. A couple of friends have been like, "You got to check these cameras out," and I got stuck on wanting to get like an X Pro 2, and they're really hard to find, but they're a really cool looking camera. I ended up finding like an XT2, which is like almost identical to an X Pro 2, except it's not a rangefinder. And
I'm not too familiar with Fujifilm, unfortunately. I know I keep seeing ads and like videos on like Instagram, like people doing those reels where they shoot like a double exposure, but it's a digital double exposure,
yeah,
and that looks so cool. And I've
it,
all like it's made me consider just getting that because it's not often that I get to shoot double exposure, but I'm like just that alone makes me want to get it like that. It looks awesome.
yeah, like if you're thinking about it, try and track down like an XT2.
Hmm.
It's really like for what you're saying with travel and stuff, it's so small and light. And the thing that's cool is you can get so many adapters for them. So you can get adapters. So like I've got one I've been messing around here where I can use like the Canon FD lenses with it.
Hmm.
Um, I've got like a Nikon one coming. I'm gonna try with my Nikon lenses, and there's even like super hella cheap brand new lenses from China from like TT Artisans and Paragear and stuff like that, where you can
Hmm.
get a 50 mil equivalent 1.2 lens for like 90 bucks brand new on Amazon.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's manual focus, but like it's sharp as heck. Like I was playing around with one the other day and was really surprised by it. So it's just like, and we've been talking a lot about film, and maybe this is sacrilegious switchover, but I think I'm a convert to the Fuji side. I still love film and everything, but like my last bill from Downtown Camera when I mailed in a bunch of stuff to get developed made me cry a little bit. And
Yeah,
I was like, there has to be something else I can try to like mess with.
yeah.
And you should be able
That's
to find them fairly cheap. Like I picked this one up for like 600, and I've seen some of like ones around like 400, but I think like probably between like 5 and 700 you can find a decent XT2.
that's not bad. I'll look into them. I've always stuck with Nikon and just like went through with it. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I remember when I started photography, my teacher, she was an amazing woman. And I hope she's doing well to this day, but she was a strong Canon believer. So when I was buying my camera, we had school cameras available. I think they were just the 3000 or 3100, but I wanted my own camera to start off with because I knew I was going to continue shooting a lot. And she was like, "Oh, buy this Canon, buy that Canon." And I'm like, I don't know why. I just went with Nikon, and she always laughed at me for it. She was like, "Oh, you're gonna regret it," and I'm like, I don't know. I don't regret it to this day, but I think it's pretty much somewhat similar to some extent. It's just a matter of preference because I've tried Canons and there were the way that certain things were set up, I'm like, this makes no sense.
Yeah, that's my
But
problem with Canons is the ergonomics on them are just hot garbage. They don't like
yeah,
if you've been shooting Nikon for any time, like it just makes sense. Like it's so
yeah,
easy to use them, and I've tried
exactly.
friends' Canons. I had a Canon for a while, and I hated it. It's yeah, not that
Yeah,
it's functionally good. Like it takes great pictures, but
yeah,
if it doesn't feel nice,
yeah, exactly.
it's kind of annoying. And I think like being a Nikon person, I'm kind of liking the Fuji's because it does have like this similar control dials to
Oh,
like
I
the
see. Yeah.
Nikons. Um, it's it's kind of like a weird mix of digital and film because it also has like all of the controls up top for like
Hmm.
shutter and exposure control and ISO,
Yeah.
and then you can control the aperture off of the lens here. So it's if you want to go full auto and just be on easy street, it's easy for that. But if you want to fuck around and do some manual stuff, it's great for that too. So yeah, I would highly recommend checking one of these out because yeah, I I believe in the Fuji now. Even though I hate Fuji so much, I begrudgingly enjoy this camera.
I was a proud typical owner of a Fujifilm Polaroid camera. The ones that like the
Oh, the
little,
Instax.
yeah, those ones. And it did not last a long time. And it's funny because not too long ago, one of my friends was like, "Oh, I want to grab one for fun." And I'm like, "No, you're buying a film camera. You have to get one." Like, I'm not letting you use this. I have nothing against those cameras, but it's just like, it's, yeah. But they're looking into buying film too, and I think like, I don't know, the 10 pictures or whatever it was, they're like $12 now. My friend was like, "Oh my God, that's so expensive." And I'm like, "Huh, joke's on you. Every photo that I take and get developed is like $1.20, like for film plus development and everything alone."
That's
So
fair. But there is something really magical about an instant photo, being able to,
that's
in that
true.
moment, be able to hand someone that a photo from that moment and share that with them.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, though, like, and I've said this so many times before, the Fuji Instax cameras are fucking garbage. Like the film is beautiful. It's a beautiful film. Fuji created an amazing film, and then made shit cameras for people to use it. Um, the SQ6 is a decent one though. It's like the square frame Instax.
Yeah.
SQ6 is actually surprisingly a good camera. But they're like Instax wide cameras are all just fucking garbage. The Neo 90, if you do Instax Mini, is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I like using the Lomography square camera a lot for Instax film. Um, it's a little like it's more manual control with it because it's like a zone focus, and you
Mm-hmm.
have some extra control that you don't usually have with the Instax cameras. But it's got a glass lens, so it makes really nice images. So it's like if you ever wanted to look into shooting the Instax medium again, there are
Mm-hmm.
options out there from other
Yeah.
companies. Um, like Lomography makes them, Mint makes some options. Like there's a few other camera companies
Mm-hmm.
out there. So.
I know at my work, when I was cleaning, I found a couple Polaroid cameras, like older ones,
Oh, cool.
and unfortunately they're not giving them away or selling them, but I told them like if you guys are ever, wanting to dispose of them, let me know because I would be interested in seeing how it works and just shooting that. I do love the concept of like getting that photo right then and there. And I think that's an interesting combination of film and digital photography almost because like you shoot and it's a film photo, it's a physical photo, but you get it right there. Um, but yeah, I don't definitely don't think I'm going back to Instax after going the 35 millimeter way. But
The Polaroid is great too. So it's like I have a insane obsession with Polaroid. Like um, way too many Polaroid cameras. It's a cool medium. The cameras have a much more interesting feel to them.
mhm,
Um, but I will sort of caveat with that the film is still a work in progress of sorts. So like Instax kind of trumps Polaroid in reliability. And someone mentioned that in the comments. Chris mentioned that in the comments where it's
mhm,
Instax has made a reliable film because they've been making the same film medium with Instax now for like over a decade kind of thing.
mhm.
Polaroid had to start over from scratch because Polaroid, as we knew it when we were growing up, that company is defunct. It no longer exists anymore. Like it vanished in the early 2000s. And
Mhm.
so the Polaroid that we have today is the massive effort of a whole bunch of passionate people that wanted to try and save what was left. And they created like a Polaroid compatible film that works in the old Polaroid cameras. But, and someone messaged me asking this question earlier today too, being like, why is it that old Polaroid had 10 shots and new Polaroid only has 8 shots? And it's
Mhm.
a thing where they had to start from scratch. And so even something as simple as like they couldn't fit 2 more shots in the cartridge because the materials they could find to try and recreate the film were just a bit thicker. So it's like new Polaroid, you only get 8 shots versus 10 shots. The reliability of it is hit or miss sometimes. Like, you know, this one turned out pretty good. I'm
Mhm.
pretty happy with that. But then, sometimes you get um, aberrations in them where it's like you get these like funky
Mhm.
light fires in them and stuff. So if you go into playing with Polaroid not expecting perfection, then you're gonna have a lot of fun with it because like
Mhm.
it's a really good artistic kind of like experience,
Mhm.
and it's a really nice like human experience when you're wanting to share moments with people and
Mhm.
you're wanting to like capture um, like time with people and like be able to be like, here's a
Mhm.
picture from this moment we shared. Polaroid is great for that. Um, I just wouldn't expect something like
Mhm.
really great from it. From like
Mhm.
a when you look at like a 35 mil shot and you're like, this is a fucking beautiful shot.
Yeah.
You're not really gonna get that, but you will get shots with Polaroid where you're like, this is an amazing shot, but it's gonna be for completely different reasons that you
Mhm.
would feel towards a 35 mil shot.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, I like the idea of it. if my work ever ends up giving up those Polaroids, I'll let you know. They are the older ones. They're not the new ones.
Okay. Are they
I don't
the box
even,
style ones that like lift
yeah,
up?
yeah. They have different versions. I think I found a total of like six of them or something, but I told them right away, I'm like, guys, don't throw these out. Like, even if I'm not working here, you need to contact me. You need to tell me you still have these cameras. Like, because I like collecting cameras and I don't have a large collection or anything, but I thought those ones would be cool to have, or at least, instead of having them thrown away, have them sold or just given to people that actually enjoy shooting Polaroids. So.
You should have just been like, I found five of them. I don't. That was all I found.
uh,
No one would have known.
we'll see. If
No,
they eventually end up going lost, I'll be like, I have no idea.
I don't know where they went. Don't look on the internet. Don't do that.
Just don't look on kijiji.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally fair.
Uh,
Busted Frames is curious. What is your favorite film stock?
um, like what film I prefer the most?
Yeah.
Uh, so I shoot the most on Kodak Gold, and I think Kodak Gold, some people shit on it too much. I love it. I think it's a great cheaper film, I guess. And I just love the look of it. I love the warm tones that it gives. I love the grain that it gets. I really, really enjoy shooting on it. However, my favorite has to be Portra 800. I
Okay. Why
don't
800?
I don't shoot on it often, and I've only ever shot maybe two rolls of Portra. And because film has been just such an experimental thing for me, and the reason why I enjoy film more than digital is because I don't want to say I don't have expectations of my shots or anything like that. I think I actually probably work harder to get a good shot. But the first time I shot Portra, I just thought that you have to have the ISO at whatever the number is on the film. So I put it to 800 and shot a whole roll a lot darker than it should have been. The pictures turned out great, and I think some of them came out really good. However, some of them were just like too dark, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, I probably messed it up. Maybe I should look into how to shoot on this film more. Never looked into it. During that trip to Vancouver, we ended up going to Tofino, and I got a roll of Portra 800 from Downtown Camera. I'm like, I'm gonna save this beautiful roll for Tofino, get some great photos, and like after we finished, we were on our way from Tofino back to Vancouver, and I was switching the rolls of film, and I realized I never changed my ISO, and I shot a Kodak Gold before, and because I thought that you had to match your ISO to the number on the film, I almost started crying because I thought I messed up a roll of Portra, and now I don't have any photos from Tofino. I apologize for that.
No.
Sorry. I am at work still, and somebody's calling, but we're closed. um, so I thought I messed up that roll of film, and I was like, oh my God, I don't have photos now from Tofino, and I was so excited to see them. And it's just going to be like phone photos, but I was like, you know what, maybe it will turn out okay. So I Googled it, and turns out that you actually can shoot a whatever ISO on a regular digital camera. And because I shot 200 ISO, the photos actually turned out amazing. And when I got that roll back, it was such a sigh of relief because I didn't fuck up an entire roll and just waste money into
Yeah.
it. And I actually still have like the memories and photos, because sometimes it's not about the roll for me, it's not about the cost of it, it's about the memories lost on that roll. And the photos that came out from it were so beautiful, and it was very, very, I love that it's very fine grain. And honestly, Portra 800 on a good sunny day is like what you need to try, because it just gets the colors so beautifully. It gets it is just amazing. That's my best way to describe it. Um, Probably my favorite photo from there. I have it posted on my account, and if you guys have a moment to check it out after, it's a photo from Tofino. It's like, I don't want to say it's a lighthouse, it's like a little house on the water, but the colors from that photo they're just so amazing, and I love how they turned out. So I think that was probably my favorite role, and I got another role from a friend as a gift, so I'm excited to try to shoot it again now that I have better knowledge of it.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Portrait 800 is an interesting one because compared to the rest of the Portrait family, it's based off of um, an older cinema film stock. So it's like Portrait 800, I believe, is like in the Vision 2 family, and then like Portrait 400 and Portrait 160 are part of a different family. So it's like 800 has some like interesting characteristics about it.
Yeah.
Um, but there's nothing ever really wrong with overexposing your film. Like even when I shoot Portrait 400, I usually shoot it at like 320 or like a bit lower just to like overexpose a little bit because it makes the
Hmm.
colors pop a bit more on
Hmm.
there. So yeah, you kind of found
Yeah.
yourself a feature.
Yeah. I usually just naturally, for whatever reason, I prefer some slight underexposure. And I think partially from digital, one of our teachers really kind of stressed that out because she was like, whenever you edit, you can always go lighter, but you can't, or sorry, yeah, you can always make a photo lighter, but you can't make a very overexposed photo go darker properly. So I think from that, I've always kind of underexposed, and because I never really like read up on film much, and just it's always an experiment for me every single time I put on a roll and start shooting.
Yeah.
Um, with that, it was an interesting turnout, but I was definitely very like concerned and worried that like I just wasted a roll and 36 photos and I had nothing from it, and they would be like all overexposed. And yeah, but it's an interesting film. Yeah, I agree. I've shot Portra 160, I've shot Portra 400, and they're not quite like the 800.
Yeah, the 800 has a different feel to it,
Yeah.
mostly 'cause it's like it's from a different family. If you like that though, if you haven't tried it yet, treat yourself sometime and get a roll of the Sinistel 800 and then shoot it at 640.
I do want to play around with that film. There's somebody that I follow on Instagram who shoots, I think, I want to say that's the only film that he ever shoots because all of the photos are taken at nighttime and they're taken around the city, and like they're very like, you know, the Blinding Lights video by The
Yeah,
Weeknd? They're very like that bright night lights like within the city, like Las Vegas, and it's very like just colorful. And they're great photos. They're very out of my, I guess, comfort zone, but I do want to try shooting with that film because I think the photos that come out from it are amazing.
even shooting. So like I shoot it during the day too, and you get some like neat colors with it during the day too as well. So it's like when you do get yourself a roll and you go to play with it, don't feel too limited with what you can do with it. And like I've shot that down to 400, and that oh, Blinding Lights was shot on Kodak film too. This is
Oh,
Matt from Kodak. Thank you, Matt,
interesting.
for chiming in there. If you have any Kodak questions, Matt can get you answers for sure.
Thank you, Matt. I didn't know
Um,
that. That's really cool. I love the video from there, and just I guess that era of The Weeknd's music, and even his new song like Take My Breath Away. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so amazing." It's very like 70s, 80s vibe, but yeah, good to know that it was shot on Kodak though.
yeah, lots of great things, and one like even Sinistil is basically a Kodak film as well too,
Yeah.
because it's Vision 3 500 that they removed the rem jet off of, so that it can be processed C41.
Hmm.
And then the 50D is a really cool one too. now that we're getting into like, well, you could probably still shoot it pretty okay in the fall, but I wouldn't really use it too much in the winter. But like, it's a 50 ISO film that's daylight balanced, and it's really nice for like taking like portraits when you have like lots of light outside. It's a really
Hmm.
beautiful film for that.
Hmm.
Um, it would have been probably kind of cool for the tunnels, for like when you get through parts of the tunnels where all the light is kind of coming in through the
Yeah,
valley. You would be able to get some cool shots in there.
yeah. I don't do portrait and people photography that often. I don't know why. It was never my cup of tea.
That's fair.
Um, as much as I've tried, I just couldn't get into it. It was always nature, but I do sometimes if I am in the mood, you'll be lucky to get like an amazing portrait of yourself, and then I'm gonna try to like force you into using it virtually everywhere.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but
I
that's
always appreciate when friends do. Like my profile picture right now is a film shot that a friend took of me in Texas a couple years ago.
yeah. I try to get my friends to get some photos of me, and on film I'm very like particular with it. I'm like, you have to wait, and only when I say go, then can you press the shutter. Like you will not touch the camera. You will not touch any single button on it because they don't shoot film or anything.
Yeah,
So I'm like, as I give it to you, don't do anything with it. But so far I've
that
gotten some good photos out of it, surprisingly, so I'm happy with that, and they get some nice profile photos and whatnot.
Summer J has a question for you. They'd like to know what kind of film would you never shoot again?
Um, Interesting question. I want to say, now I don't remember which one this was. I shot a roll of Ilford. It was a black and white film. I don't know if it was 400 or another ISO, but I don't remember off the top of my head now. But there was definitely one black and white roll that I would just not shoot again. It came out very blurry, and the photos were very like, it was just too grainy for my liking.
It was Ilford XP2 400, wasn't it?
Maybe. And now that I think of it, I'm pretty sure I bought another roll of it or like somehow got it. But yeah, there was one roll that I just did not enjoy. I think another film that I don't think is worth the money is the Portra 160, but I don't know. I don't think that I don't know. Maybe I didn't like how the photos turned out from it. I do love Kodak Gold for that very specific like warm vacation photos and happy memories and sunshine kind of vibe. And even when you're shooting in the winter, any time of the year, you can shoot anything with it. I think it's such a versatile film, but I think for the money, like when I shot the Portra 160, when I got the photos back, I was kind of like, I wouldn't buy this again.
That's fair. Matt, do you have any defense on Portra 160 there? And while he's conjuring an answer, if he is, I'm going to defend XP2 just a little tiny bit. It is grainy as fuck, super grainy, but it's a really interesting film because it's one of the few, maybe the only one left out there that is a black and white film that can be processed with C41.
Mm,
And so XP2 is a really interesting film, and I'd say like maybe even an important film for people that are interested in getting into film photography that may not have access to like a really good lab, where
mm-hmm,
like maybe they're using like a London Drugs or like a Walmart or something like that to get their film processed,
mm-hmm.
but they want to play around with black and white film. They could use something like an XP2 to be able to take black and white shots and then just drop that off at like a generic lab that only does C41. It is grainy as heck though, and so it's like if you
Yeah.
don't like grain, that's not really the film for you. I kind of love grain, so it's like
I
I
have
dig.
no problem with grain. The reason why I didn't like that specific role, so I shot it. It was during the last trip that my friends and I took to Vancouver, and it was last September. And it was at the time, it was very cloudy and kind of like foggy and rainy. And it was also when the smoke from California was there. So it wasn't too bad, but literally every single photo, I think just the like all of those factors, they just made it like extra grainy and things came out
Mm.
blurry and like it just didn't work for me. Maybe in a different environment it would work better. I'm pretty sure I ended up buying another roll of it just because I didn't realize that was the film that I didn't like. So I'll have to try it again eventually, but I do love black and white film. But I don't think that one was it.
It's not for everybody. And
Yeah,
Matt came up with funny, so he's like, you shoot whatever you like. He knows people that shoot only 160, but it's great that we have choices,
I
isn't it?
agree with that.
And I would agree with that completely too.
Yeah,
Like that's the one thing that's like so cool about film is that there's just so many choices right now. Like
for sure.
not only from Kodak, but like, sometimes Fuji decides to make film, and then you've got Lomography that's making all sorts of like really great, cool stuff right now. Someone had mentioned a Lomography 800 there.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw.
if you haven't tried that yet, next time your downtown camera picks them up, they have some in stock, and they usually don't have it in stock very often. So
Hmm.
grab a couple rolls of that and play with it. That's a great film too. And like Lomography is always coming up with like really interesting films as well too.
Hmm.
Like the Metropolis film is a lot of fun. Purple is a cool film. They have lots of great black and whites. Um, yeah, so many different film options out there that it's nice to have that sort of choice.
Yeah, I think it's nice because I find in the film community, I think people are a lot nicer and people are just a lot. It's a less stressful community than it is in digital, I find, but it's nice because a lot of people's work, like as I started this account recently, I'm starting to follow more and more film photographers. It's nice to see that no one really has the exact same thing. Like nobody shoots in the exact same manner. Everybody has their own almost style of photos, and even if the photos are not of the exact same subject or similar subject matter, it's nice to see that there's not a lot of people that repeat the exact same photos, and it's nice to see that variety.
Yeah, it's the film community is a very cool community,
Yeah.
and I can't wait for COVID to pipe down so that we could travel freely again. Because the film community in the US is really cool too. Like, there's lots of awesome events that happen down there, and even things like if you ever get the chance and you want to like have a really cool experience,
Hmm.
um, every once in a while Kodak offers tours of the Kodak factory,
Oh,
and
cool.
Matt leads those tours, and it is some of the best money you'll probably spend to just sort of see where film comes from and learn all the stuff. And you get
For
like some
sure.
free film and you get to like have lunch there. But just I went there in 2019 and I'm still like sort of unpacking what I saw that day, and it's a hell of an experience. And so it's like, and then you get to meet lots of like really interesting film people as well too, because it's usually film nerds that are ponying up
For
money
sure.
to go wander around the Kodak factory for a day. Really, no, not wander, more like frantically rush from place to place because it's like a huge, huge campus. So, like, Matt drove us around in like a little like Kodak short bus, and like we went from like building to building and checked out stuff, and
Mhm.
a very cool experience.
Awesome. Thank you for telling me about that. I'll add it to my list. I love getting those sorts of experiences, and as much as I don't enjoy usually tours, and I'm very like whenever I travel, I'm big on having my own itinerary and not taking like your typical tour bus all over the place, but I know there's definitely some really cool like tours that are smaller and more low key, whether it's like for museums or anything like that. But that's awesome. I'll add it to the list.
It's neat too because like you as you're wandering around the different places, like the engineers and the technicians and the people that like work on the film and make the film, they're there because it's like just it's a regular work
Yeah.
day. Um, and you get to ask them questions about stuff. And so it's like that's something that you typically don't get to do on like a regular tour, is like be able to pick the brain of like someone that made the film that you're using. And so
Yeah.
if you have any questions about like, the film stocks do you enjoy, or like, how it all works, it's an amazing opportunity to be able to like pick those people's brain, and they'll share with you what they can. Like there's some trade secrets that they can't share, but
Yeah.
it was a very cool experience.
Interesting. That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to visit Japan one day, and I know they have a huge film community, even though it's apparently super expensive to get film there, but I think developing it is cheap, but there's a lot of cameras and stuff available, so it would be interesting to see things there and obviously shoot there. But I'll add the Kodak factory to my list. That's not something I've heard of, but definitely an interesting experience.
That's very cool. Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Japan too. Like I've heard amazing things of like the film community there. Like Japan and Hong Kong are like two bucket list places for
Yeah,
film nuts.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, my goal was to travel after graduating university. That was supposed to be my gift to myself to just travel to Japan, but unfortunately, it didn't work out. But hopefully, eventually, soon, sometime, we'll see. But it is what
Once the
it
world
is.
starts opening up again.
Yeah, yeah. But
Where else would you like to travel to and take pictures?
I think New Zealand is definitely on the bucket list. I've seen some amazing photos from there, and it's usually through other photographers that I find certain locations, and I'm like, oh, I'd love to go there, I'd love to go here. Alberta's on the list. I would definitely love to see the Rockies and I guess better, more up close. I loved BC a lot and definitely will be returning there quite often. Um, Trying to think of where else. Morocco is definitely a place where I would love to shoot. I think it has a very interesting environment and atmosphere, and I'd love to just visit there and see how it is. Greece, Italy as well. I'm an ancient history nerd, so I'd love to visit those places. Um, yeah, lots and lots of places on my bucket list to travel to. I'd love to go back home to Russia and hopefully when the opportunity presents itself, I'd love to actually shoot film there, and just travel more around there because never really had the chance to do that.
Is that where you're originally from, Russia? Or?
Yeah, I was born there and we moved here when I was around 8 years old.
Okay.
So it would be interesting to go back there and just visit more places and get to shoot film there because there's a I don't remember his last name now. Ugh. There's a photographer that did a series on Siberia, which is where I'm from, and I'd love to actually purchase his book and see the photos from it because it's interesting to me how he views it and what he got to see. But he has a wonderful series of just traveling through Siberia and like just shooting things and how life is there. So yeah, I'd hope to do that one day, but
That's
yeah.
really cool.
My travel bucket list is very long and I'll travel virtually anywhere.
One of my favorite cameras is a Russian camera.
Oh, really? Which
Yeah,
one?
it's the Zorky S.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I'm so
it's
surprised whenever I see those for sale because it's like, how are you gonna find parts or anything for them? They're
there's a pretty healthy community to fix it because like they're just mechanical cameras. Like there's not a lot
hmm
uh, that can go wrong with them really. So they're probably more fixable than like things like the F100 and stuff like that is,
yeah,
um, which seems a bit counterintuitive. Um, But oh shit, just a sec here.
No
Sorry.
worries.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
It's a Purelator package. It's a very aggressive knock. Yeah, they're cool. Like it's basically a ripoff of a Leica 3.
Yeah.
Like they like gratuitously ripped off the camera and the lens. And if you come across one, like definitely worth checking out because they're a lot of fun to play with and easy to shoot. And I think you can find them for like $150 with a lens.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those for sale around, but I don't know, never got around to purchasing it, but I recently found out so my great grandfather, he actually used to shoot film, and he was a captain, and he would travel across Russia. So he went to Japan, he went to Germany, and he used to bring film cameras across, and he used to shoot film. And when my dad used to visit him, he remembers him like seeing him take photos here and there. And we recently found out that actually some of the cameras are still available and they're still left somewhere in the house. So
Oh, wild.
yeah, I'm hoping they're in Latvia because that's where he lived. That's where he passed away. But yeah, my dad's cousin suddenly found them and she was like, "Oh my God, we have the cameras. Like we'll save them for Lisa when she visits." So I'm excited to find out what he shot and what he used and just see what the equipment was like there. But yeah, I guess eventually the collection will grow of my cameras and I'll try out different ones. But yeah.
That's exciting. Have you had a chance to see any of his work yet, or not?
I've seen some just photos, but it was like of my dad and his brother, so it wasn't anything. I don't know how much of it is left, to be honest, and what's even available there, but I think they just kind of have everything in a box and just left it be. But I'd love to come across it sometime when I visit and just get to check everything out and hopefully, you know, maybe some of it is functional, maybe try shooting on it. I think that would be a really awesome opportunity for me.
It's cool to be able to use like potentially have access to that old stuff. Like Arbs
Yeah,
just mentioned here. That's dope. I
yeah.
came across someone who inherited their grandpa's Cam 2, and their feed features modern day shots using it.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
it's neat being able to use like those old cameras, like this one here. Um, this camera was my mom's. She got it 2 years before I was born, and like all
Hmm.
my childhood photos and everything were like shot with this camera, and I still put film through it every once in a while, and it's cool to be able to like use something that's
Hmm.
like been around for so long.
Yeah. We have somewhere at home as well, in my hometown. I think my parents' film camera, all they know is it's an Olympus and that's it. But we have that somewhere as well. I think my grandma has it saved for me. So when I visit, I have a lot of film photography and equipment to pick up on my way back.
Well, that's exciting. You're gonna have to bring an extra bag.
Yeah, yeah, extra suitcase just for all the equipment. But I'm looking forward to seeing it all. It's nice to get all that stuff. And yeah, like having your parents' cameras, it's cool because like it's older than you. Your childhood was shot with that camera, and
Yeah.
it's it's an interesting experience. I guess somewhat historic as well. But I was gonna ask, what's your favorite camera to shoot with?
My
I
favorite
guess
camera to do with.
film one.
My F5 is probably the one that I shoot with the most.
Hmm.
Um, I've been a friend loaned me his Leica M3, and I've been putting a lot of film through that. I really have been enjoying that, and it's fun to have the Leica experience, even though
Hmm.
I can't afford it myself. Um, but I think my most favorite camera to shoot, it would be a toss-up between my Wista 4x5 or the Polaroid SX70. I kind of like both of those just as much. The 4x5 is a very different kind of like shooting experience because like you can't just like point it at something and focus and click. Like you got to do a lot more work to take a picture with it. So it's more deliberate for sure.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun though. What's something that you've always wanted to try that you haven't had a chance to do yet with your practice?
I want to say double exposure, as cliche as that sounds. I've accidentally shot one roll of double exposure, but only got a couple photos of it, and some of them are cool, but some of them were like, most of them just weren't really anything special, but I think I'd love to try a good double exposure, but I feel like I plan a lot in my photography as well because I want to make sure I get the best photos because like when that bill comes from downtown camera, I want to make sure I'm paying for something that's worth it. So I think I'd love to try that. I think I'd love to just try out new films and maybe learn more about photography. I find that there's times when I kind of fall back and just like constantly shoot and I'm like, okay, whatever, I don't really care how this turns out, how that photo turns out. There's moments when I think I want to be more present when shooting and really putting in more of that effort to really get that best shot. And that's why I liked my Yashica camera because the shutter was kind of broken, so I'd have to stand like super still when shooting and like really prop anything possible to get that good shot just because it would come out very blurry if I didn't. And I think with the F100 it's kind of put me back to that like easy shooting. So I think I want to try focusing more on the work and I guess being more present whenever shooting. But yeah, just trying out different films, different exposures, learning more about like underexposure and overexposure, things like that. I'm still fairly new to it, so if people have tips on what to try out, I'm always open to it.
Well, if you want to do multiple exposures, the F100 is a fantastic camera for that because it does have a multi-exposure mode on it.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's one of the drive modes. Where is my F100? Just a sec. Here we go. Yeah, so it's in one of the drive modes. This one.
Oh.
That will do multiple exposures.
I'm gonna have to read more about that.
Yeah, so it's like you push the button just above the dial, and then this is where you can like change the drive modes from single to continuous. But that one there, that's multiple exposure. So it'll fire once, and then it won't advance the film. It'll let you fire again, and then it'll advance the film.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah, so you've got a multiple exposure making machine right there.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna try that out now. I have to set aside a role for that. I like those accidental double exposures where the photos are very different but they work together. I ended up from that one roll where I just put it through twice. I ended up getting some photos of like flowers and a sunset, and the colors just look really interesting. And then one of the photos was just like a street photo. I think it was one of the sample photos when I got that camera first. I just took a photo of like a building, and then I got flowers from my mom's garden over it, and it was just like a really interesting contrast.
That's cool.
But I definitely want to try that double exposure thing now.
Yeah, well, and the thing that's cool with it is you can mix and match it too. So you can have like regular shots, and then you can do some double
Yeah,
exposure shots on the same roll. So
exactly.
you don't have to dedicate a roll to it.
Yeah, because I was thinking of how I would organize that because I saw somebody did double exposure of mountains and it looked really, really cool. And it was just mountains over mountains, but it was like the layers of mountains that were amazing. And I was like, oh, I have to get like a third camera now to carry with me to just like shoot that double exposure. And obviously, when you're hiking or traveling, you don't want to be carrying all that. But
Yeah, it's a bit too much to carry.
yeah, that's cool though. Thank you for telling me about that. Are
No
there,
problem. Happy to share. It's
yeah,
they're cool cameras. Like I really love the
yeah.
F1.
I feel like I haven't had a moment to really like sit down and go through everything that it has to offer, which kind of sucks because I know the camera has a lot to offer, but definitely feel like I need to take a moment to just learn more about it. But yeah, I would say that would be my thing of wanting to just be more present and shoot a little bit differently for film.
Yeah, there's so much that you could do with this guy. Um, I don't even fully know everything that it does, but um, you can't go wrong. I can't remember if the F80 does multiple exposure. I think it does multiple exposures too. Um, and then on the Fuji thing, one thing that's cool with the Fuji, any of their X Pro, like their X series films, or X series digital cameras, and maybe their other, I can't remember, but at least with like the XT2 and the X Pros and stuff like that, you can put film recipes in there, and there's people
Oh,
out there that are making emulation recipes where you can like shoot Kodak Gold or you can shoot Portra 800 and stuff like that on the digital, and it mimics that film look off of it. So
interesting.
that's one thing that seemed kind of cool.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm. I guess for like somebody that's like a purist, it's somewhat like of a
sacrilege.
backwards or like tainting the film industry or whatnot or tainting the digital, but that's interesting. I think it's a
I
cool like best of both worlds.
I would agree. Like, especially after the last bill that I got from Downtown Camera, I was just like, I love film, but oh man, that made my wallet hurt. Some
Yeah.
compare.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get into trying out developing for myself as well, but maybe I'll try out that lab that you recommended first to see how that goes.
Developing is pretty cool. Like I haven't tried color yet. I've heard a lot of people say color is easier. I've just personally been kind of intimidated by it, but black and white's super easy. Um, the only thing that I don't like about doing my own development is that I have to do my own scanning, and I really fucking hate scanning. Um, so that's what's kind of dissuaded me from doing more of my own processing.
Hmm.
Um, when I could do printing, though, like, because I would shoot a bunch of stuff and then I would just print it in the darkroom. I didn't mind doing developing then because like the negs were just going straight into the darkroom, so
Hmm.
I didn't have to really worry about scanning because I would be getting like prints out of it. So I think it was I was telling you about Gallery 44. That's
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a cool place. I would highly recommend checking out the website, and when things start opening up again, um, it's a cool place because like they have all the stuff there to do
Hmm.
the development. Um, Using the developing area is just free as part of the membership. Like you don't have to pay anything extra for that. But if you want to
Hmm.
go do printing, you could rent dark rooms out. They have a really nice Imicon scanner there that you could rent out, so you could scan the negs that you've done there.
Hmm.
They have a studio you can rent out. So if you want to get into like, playing around with studio shooting, there's like a whole studio space there and lighting equipment that you could rent out.
Hmm.
Um, they also have like really cool equipment rentals as well too. So like if there's like lenses you wanted to try out, or if you wanted to try out like a different camera, they have like a bit of everything there, like 35 mil cameras, medium format cameras, 4x5 cameras as well that you could rent out,
Hmm.
and all the rental prices are really reasonable.
Awesome. Yeah, I gotta look into that because I feel like I haven't fully immersed myself in the film world and everything that it has to give. And at times it definitely becomes overwhelming because I'm like, oh, people know all this stuff about like processing or about equipment. And I'm like, I have no idea.
Baby steps, you'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. It takes time. It's tough when you have multiple hobbies. It's tough to give your all to everything and then everything just becomes expensive. So,
That's
yeah.
fair. Can you like blend any of your other hobbies into film, or are they all very distinct hobbies?
So I'm so, to an extent, so I guess traveling like that goes very hand in hand with photography. I enjoy just automotive things overall. And
Okay.
I attend quite a bit of like automotive events.
Like what kind of automotive stuff?
Just so far I've attended primarily like shows and track days, things like that. And
That's
those are fun, and photography definitely goes hand in hand with that because I do get the opportunity to shoot some cool cars and get some photos of just people being like doing things around the track. So it's nice. I do enjoy it. Lately, I haven't been bringing my camera around as much, just because, yeah, I don't know, keep
that's
forgetting it. But here and there it goes hand in hand, and it's nice to shoot that stuff as well.
So in a past life, I used to be a bit more of a petrol head and worked in mobile electronics for a while. So I do enjoy cars a lot. What's your favorite kind of car?
I'm a huge GTR nerd, like Nissan GTRs. I
Nice.
absolutely love them, and I think they're like pinnacle of automotive technology
Like
for their
the newer GTRs or like the old school
the
ones?
old school ones. I think for their time they're like a huge peak of that. I love Porsches, like love 911s. Very grateful that my family owns one and I have the opportunity to drive it and enjoy it. But yeah, I think the GTR is definitely a dream car, and fingers crossed one day.
They're they've skyrocketed in price
Oh
recently.
God,
Like it's crazy.
it's awful how much they cost now and like everything. There's drift tax. There's just so many things where like cars that were like 2, 3 grand like a year ago, they're like 7 to 10 grand now, and it's kind of, I want to say it's unfortunate because a lot of people just take advantage of it and just raise prices even more. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. It makes you work harder, but it's also tough now because a couple of years ago, I think when I really fell in love with GTRs, I really wanted an R32, and at the time they were like 26 grand for like a good one. And there was one that went up for sale, and I truly wish that I just convinced my parents at the time to like buy it, and I would have just paid it off because it was an amazing sample, and it was only 26,000, and it had like rare parts, and it was just an amazing shape. And now, if someone were to sell it, it would probably be like 60 grand.
It's crazy how much they shot up. Like
Yeah,
it's just wild. Like I remember when they first started importing them, when they got to the age that they could start being shipped in
yeah.
from Japan, and they were like hella cheap then. Like I was hearing dudes like getting them into Canada for like 12, 15 grand. Because
Even
people
less
were like,
than
oh,
that.
yeah, like they were super super cheap, and it was kind of fun like doing the right, like driving on the right hand side was kind of neat. It was weird though,
Yeah.
um, shifting with with my left hand instead of the right because like
Yeah,
it just my hand wasn't really geared for that. But
yeah,
they were GTRs are very cool.
yeah. The first car I ever learned how to drive manual on, I still never got enough practice to successfully drive manual, but the first car was actually my friend's GTT or GTST R34. So I started learning like right hand drive, well, I guess left hand shifting.
Yeah,
So it was a weird experience, but and I think because I didn't know how to do it before, it was like fine. But it took me like 2 years later to realize like, oh, I this is what I drove and I drove right hand drive and all this stuff.
that's very cool.
Yeah. What about you? What's your favorite like all-time favorite vehicle?
Oh man, that's a tough one because there's just so many rad cars out there. Um, I like the subtle cars that are kind of insane. So like one of my favorites is like um, the Mercedes AMG E55 wagon
Those are
because
awesome.
they're so crazy awesome because like it just looks like a family wagon
Yeah.
that can rip your face off because it's just absolutely mental.
Yeah.
Um, and I just love that like the V8 burble when you like start them up, and it's got that like it doesn't sound like a normal Mercedes, and then
Yeah.
driving around normally like it's pretty tame, but then when you open it up, it's just like a hell beast. Um,
Yeah. The S600 Mercedes, I've heard, I don't know if you've ever heard one of those in person. It's just, it's amazing. It's like, it's an orgasmic sound. It truly sounds like a Formula One car. When it just
those are
pulls
cool.
away, it's insane.
Yeah, I had a customer back in the day that had one, and they were neat to drive too because it was such a huge car, but it handled so well, and it had the active seat bolstering, so when you were going hard into a corner, it would like inflate the seat so it would keep you
Oh,
upright. Like it was like hugging you the whole time when you were driving it. Um,
interesting.
that was a cool car to rip around in. Um, one of my favorites though, and I got to kind of have one for like 6 months. Was it was a 2008 Jaguar XJR supercharged, black on
Awesome.
black, and a friend of mine he bought it a week after he came to my wedding in Victoria, and he's a funny cat. He owned this car for so long, but he never really had it that often. It spent most of its time in Victoria because he'd drop it off at the dealership and then just kind of forget about it because he had so many other cars.
Hmm.
Um, and then he messaged me one day and he's like, "I think I'm gonna go pick up the Jag because I kind of miss it. You want to do lunch when I come through Kamloops?" And um, I was like, yeah, totally. And then he sends me a picture of the Jaguar on a flat deck. And I was like, oh shit, what happened to the Jaguar? He's like, nothing. She runs just fine. But apparently the cops don't like it when you're doing 180 through a 90. So he's like, I need a place to stay, and the car's going to car jail tonight. And so it got
Oh,
impounded for, I think, like 14 days, and he had to fly home. And he never picked it up again. Like he was just like, "Hey, I'll send you some money. Can you go pick it up from car jail and just like keep it at your house?" He's like, "It's insured. Just drive it around like it's yours." And it was at my house for like 6, 7 months, and I ended up selling it in my driveway for him. Like some dude came up from Surrey and like bought it from my driveway from him. But that car had like the engine on that was such a cool sounding engine, and I was dating this girl at the time who was sort of like a very sort of new age, hippie-ish Chinese medicine doctor,
hmm.
and she really didn't understand car stuff. Like she thought, like I picked her up to go for dinner one night in this car, and she kind of rolled her eyes when she saw it. It was like, oh, like fuck is this shit? And she lived sort of out of town, so I had to hit the highway to go back
Hmm.
into town for dinner, and I was on a merge, and I opened it up for the merge, and it just kind of like took off, and she she was making this like purring noise, and I was like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I don't know what happened, but something happened, and I think I understand cars now." She's like, "Can you do that again? Can you make it do that thing where it rumbles and makes the noise?"
Well, I'm glad that she at least enjoyed it.
It was kind of funny, but yeah, like I love those old Jags, and yeah, I love the old manual cars too, like an old like the really old boxy Jettas. I
I know
they
some,
for
yeah.
for a while in like the 80s they made like a two-door super boxy Jetta,
Yeah.
really cool. Um, and then old Volvos, like I'm a real Volvo head. Um, so it's like I've got a 78 242 like two-door Volvo that I'm planning on rebuilding at some point. Um, but yeah, I kind of like all those old cars.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
for me, I definitely grew up more around European cars, so like Mercedes and BMW were more primary there. Eventually, with things, just kind of went into the Japanese side of it, and just I don't think I could go back. Um, yeah, and just love them so much, specifically like the older Japanese cars. Um, However, my family picked up a 911, like a 997.2.
Nice.
I want to say last year we got it, yeah. And I remember sitting into it and I was like, I wonder if like this will live up to the dream, and it just surpasses it. Um, yeah, so if anyone has a chance to drive a 911, it's definitely, I think, worth the hype. I don't know about the newer ones, and I think it's obviously different by model, but it's an enjoyable car to say the least. Whether you're just cruising or whether you really want to enjoy it, it's that good all around car. So I get why the Porsche brand is so loved and enjoyed by
Yeah.
people.
They are great cars. They handle amazingly, and they have like a really good power distribution on them. Like they're definitely wild. But the old Euro cars are cool too. Like I mean, I I have a real soft spot for like the mid '90s S500 and X600. Those like big chonky like Russian mafia looking kind of cars. Like I love those ones.
Yeah,
Uh,
me too.
yeah, they just look so badass.
Yeah,
Like the
I
same
hope to own one day. I feel like I have to do it.
Yeah, you have to like get it bagged so that you could just like drop it when you get to places. And
Yeah,
the 95 545i was like a dream car for me for the longest time. Like I wanted to have like a black on black 545i for the longest time. Um, yeah, and then Gavin here mentioned the 80s Audi 5-cylinder turbos and the Audi Quattros. Audis are pretty cool too. I dig the Quattros. I kind of always wanted a Quattro 90. It was like the two-door one from like the 90s. But I've got a V70 Volvo right now, all-wheel drive wagon that has the 5-cylinder, and something about 5-cylinder turbos. They sound pretty freaking badass. They are.
I can
They're a
imagine.
lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm
And
not
super,
too familiar with Audis. Um, but we actually saw the new, what is it, RS6, the new wagon that came
oh,
out. Saw
that's
that
such
in Vancouver, and my friend and I were like freaking out on the street. We were like going crazy about it because I think I've seen one in Toronto by now, but at that time in the summer I haven't seen one, and we were like, oh my God, this looks amazing. It's such a well built and beautiful looking car.
Yeah, the Audis are so nice. Like I always really wanted like a mid '90s S4 for the longest time, like before they made them smaller and boxy, like when they were still, or smaller and rounded, like when they were
Hmm.
more like longer and boxy. And the old S8, like the late 90s S8 was a really, really cool one. But the new RS6, that's cool. I got to drive an RS4 once, and that was a hell of an experience. Like that thing was just like a fucking rocket ship. They are very cool cars. Like, yeah. Sorry for like departing from photography a little bit there.
I feel
Like,
like everyone in the chat is still enjoying it though. So.
well, and so like that's one thing that has been interesting that I found in the photography world is that if there's like a Venn diagram, you could have like these different things, and some of the commonalities I've noticed is a lot of photography people end up being car people, watch people, or really heavy into music.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. I I don't think I've met that many film people, but anybody that I do know definitely falls into one of those categories.
Yeah, Wastrip Silver here says photography is mechanical, cars, watches, etc.
Yeah,
And Dave says gear snobs for life.
yeah,
It's true though.
yeah,
Like it's fun, and like I mean I can't take apart any of my cameras and work on them. I mean I could try, but I'd probably break them more than I'd fix them.
yeah,
But I could work on my car a little bit, which is kind of nice. I don't
yeah,
really worry about that as much.
yeah. That's true. Yeah, I could see that. I'd be too scared to take apart my film camera because I have no idea where anything goes. But car wise is like here and there. If I can find a YouTube video on it and it seems easy enough, then like I'll give it a shot. But if they say it's like a 10-minute job, I know it's like 2 hours for me. So
Yeah,
it's 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 its own thing. But yeah, it's interesting to see like for other people. I think anybody that I've seen in the community, definitely travel is another big hobby and a big
travel.
factor for a lot of people. Yeah. But there's some talented film car photographers that I've been finding, and it's nice to see that people are still shooting and finding cool cars to shoot with it.
Yeah, and especially shooting them on Sinistel 800. Oh, vinyl, that's a great one too. Lots of vinyl heads in the photography world.
Yeah.
I'm a little sad right now because like you can usually on that thing under the mirror is a turntable, but I broke it on my move, so it's at the
Um,
doctor's right now getting fixed so I can listen to records again.
Hopefully it gets fixed soon. Hopefully you get it back.
Yeah, I hope so. I tried to fix it myself and I think I made it worse, so it's just like it needs professional help now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I know a friend of mine, I got him, we did like a shared uh birthday gift and we got him a vinyl and like I guess the record player. So yeah, I don't know. I've considered getting one, but I feel like the space aspect for it is just doesn't work for me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna get into vinyl, don't, for the love of anything, gods, if you're into that, Satan, whatever, don't buy any of those fucking Crosley piece of shit Urban Outfitters
Oh God,
turntable.
no.
Just don't do that.
Oh
Don't like. There's nothing more painful than like seeing someone bring out like a really nice piece of vinyl and then put it into one of those music shredders. It's just don't do that. Like go and go to like a used shop and buy like an old vintage turntable or something, and just spend the money on that. Like
yeah.
you can buy a turntable at Walmart, you shouldn't put records into it. don't,
Yeah.
don't do
I have my own thoughts about Urban Outfitters and them somewhat ruining film photography for
How so?
people. I find so I find a lot of people in the past, like I've noticed this obviously ever since I got into photography, and obviously everybody starts somewhere. And there's definitely people like I purchased a disposable camera from Walmart at one point. I hated it. I purchased one, but I still got to, try one out. But I find that a lot of people purchase things from Urban Outfitters because they seem like cool and like unique. And then everybody's like, I'll say the Instax camera, for example, because at one point I remember that was like super popular and like everybody had one. And then I feel like the prices went up for them and like prices went up for film and things like that. And same thing with like Urban Outfitters now, I'm noticing they have certain film cameras. I think they carry like, I don't know if it's lomography or something like that. I know they carry like disposable ones for sure. And it kind of sucks because it's like, oh, people will use it and then prices will go up for everybody in the photography world that actually like sticks with it. But for some people, it's just like a momentary cool thing to do and to try out. But it's
Yeah.
something that they'll just like throw out. But it has an impact, like it has a lasting impact on people that aren't there just for shits and giggles, that are like professional photographers or like more true hobbyists of whatever it is. So that's my take on it. I don't hate on anybody, obviously, for like buying those cameras, and I get it. Sometimes it's you don't know where to start. Sometimes you need to pick up something, or like you just really want something, and whatever it is. But that's sort of my take on it. I'd always rather, even when starting with photography, it was I'd always rather research it than get like a random disposable camera and call it a day or like carry on with that. But yeah, yeah, wait, Urban Outfitters is still a thing.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of feel I have similar feels to that, but on the same token, there is a bit of me that is glad that people are still buying things because it means that it'll encourage companies to still continue to make film, and hopefully we'll see more development of new cameras because I've talked about this with like other guests and stuff before. Is it's great that we have lots of options for film, but the unfortunate thing is we don't have lots of options for cameras because there's not too many people making brand new cameras beyond like disposable or reusable cameras. Like, you can't go buy a brand new SLR right now. I think it's like Leica might be one of the last like actual makers of like a brand new 35 millimeter film camera right now. Like, because Nikon discontinued the F6 in I think 2019 or yeah 2019 they discontinued it. So
Mm-hmm.
like I hope that the continued popularity of film will encourage other companies to um, you know make new cameras because as Waster of Silver says, I doubt we'll ever run out of used cameras in the market for people who want them. I
To some extent, I agree with that, but from another,
well,
if they break and you can't fix them
and
or you
that's the
choose
thing.
not
Like,
to fix it,
it depends on the type of cameras
yeah.
because it's like, sure, like we'll probably never run out of point and shoot cameras. There's so many point and shoot cameras that are out there. We won't run out of those.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the SLR cameras and some of the more like unique and interesting cameras, there's only a finite amount of those cameras that are out there, and any of them that are in working condition when they break, like some of them are getting scavenged for parts. Or they've just been like stored improperly or something. Like someone left the batteries in an F100 and threw it in a shelf, and it rotted it out, and so it's just like functionally the rest of the camera is good, but battery acid ate the important parts of it. So
Mm-hmm.
like that's kind of a sad part of that, but who knows? Because I doubt nothing new, not worth the money to. Yeah, and like that is a big thing. Like the cost
Yeah.
to a really like, prosumer level film camera, it's probably just too expensive to do that. And like that was something that one of my guests commented on a couple of years, or not a couple months ago, was shutters are like one of the biggest problems with looking at making a new like SLR or something, is because no one really knows how to make shutters properly anymore. And like that's kind of a scary thing to think about. And like I've talked about this in like my regular work, but also with just like other industry friends and stuff, is that even though we're expanding all this technology and we're able to do all these like really cool and amazing things with like future tech, we're losing skills that previously existed, and the ability to create products and things that previously existed, because it's not something that's really compatible with like this new digital world that we're on, where everything it's not necessarily about quality, but it's about making them cheap and making them quick kind of thing. And there was like an article a friend was telling me about, where it's even like the dexterity of people's ability is starting to wane right now, where some researchers are starting to get worried that there may be like future generations of people that may not have the dexterity to do things like brain surgery and things like that, because we don't have to use our hands as much as we did before. Like we're not writing as much, and we're not engaging our hands as much outside of like typing on a phone or like typing on a keyboard kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting to think about like what kind of world we're heading into right now.
It's an interesting topic to think about and discuss, because I agree. I work with kids a lot, and I've worked with kids for many years, and it's interesting to see. I guess like it's a matter of like parent choices, whether like you see some kids that spend a lot of time on phones, iPads, whatever, and versus kids that don't spend that much time, or whether it's more regulated, I guess, at home, and the difference between those kids. Because some kids, it truly makes me sad when they're like glued to their devices, and it's they're like 4 years old, and they're like, oh my God, I need my iPad, or like I'm gonna die. It's like they'll be fine. People lived without them, and people had great childhoods without them.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the motor skills are definitely changing, and I don't know, it's interesting to see where they will go, because we are going more towards that like touchpad kind of world. But I read somewhere recently, a couple days ago, that Mercedes is thinking about coming out with a car that will drive based on your thoughts. Or like, I have no idea. That interests me a lot, because is it just a matter of you saying, I want to go to this location, the car just kind of automatically drives you there, or do you have full control of it? But it made me sad, truly, because that takes away the entire aspect of driving and enjoying driving and everything that comes with it. But I think I agree with waster of silver. We are getting dumber. Like we're getting smarter and we're discovering more things, but I think in a lot of ways we're generating towards a downward trend in certain areas.
Well, and I think I share his sentiment there too. Like when you said they're developing cars that drive on thoughts, and he's like, scary, I have some weird thoughts, and I'm like, yeah, I do too. And like the last thing that should be like reading my thoughts and interpreting them is like 2 tons of metal and glass, like engine driving.
But my issue with that is like humans just overall, you process around 100 thoughts per minute, like something like that. And how will a car process that? Because if you're just thinking, like, whatever you're driving, you're not just like, driving. You're like, oh, that's a cool car. That tree looks cool. Interesting. That bump wasn't there last time I drove there. What should I eat for breakfast today? And like, how is a car gonna filter out those other randomly generated thoughts and things of that sort?
there's the thoughts of someone who may struggle with like mental illness and suicidal
That too,
ideation
of
like
course.
that. Like, oh, I screwed up that work email today at Becky. I should just drive into that semi truck, and like
That too.
that like a car shouldn't be able to read those thoughts. That would be kind of
Exactly.
scary.
Exactly.
Oh, and I can't stand that guy. Oh no, I didn't mean to hit him.
That, yeah. Or like that person drives like an asshole. I wish they would just get off the road, like, and your car makes
Yeah,
that happen. What's good? Yeah. I I
that's in,
disagree heavily with all that kind of technology and all those concepts of things coming from your thoughts and being worked by your thoughts because A is just, I guess, you're ruining it for yourself because you're not physically moving as much, you're not physically doing those things. And like you said, like the brain surgery aspect, it's not like we're not going to need brain surgery in the future.
yeah.
I'm sure we will, but who
Well,
knows if
it's
we'll be
also
able to do it.
crazy too because like I drive like a 2007 car, so there's like no intelligence in my vehicle. I do like the most intelligent thing in my car is me, which is like good and bad some days. But when I've taken the car into Volvo to have like work done to it, I'll get a loaner sometimes, and the tech in those things is just it does like the auto braking, it can do auto steering, and it's just like it's kind of like it freaks me out a little bit because I'm like, well, these are all things that people should be paying attention to. And if you can't pay attention to them, maybe you shouldn't be driving. But instead of fixing it at the people level, they're like, oh, we'll just make the car smarter so that the people can just be dumber behind the wheel. And I don't think that's really the right answer. Like,
Yeah.
we need to like educating people more and making sure that people are actually paying attention and not having a reliance on the car because like it also scares the shit out of me sometimes because there's times where it's like, if you're cutting into corners and you don't see any other cars, like I'll kind of carve into corners a little bit more than you should because it's kind of fun and it's safe because there's no other cars out there.
Yeah.
But when you have a car with like all this tech, it's like, oh, you're doing something wrong, and it tries to like correct the wheel, and yeah, there's
Yeah.
been a couple brown pants moments I've had with these like newer cars.
Yeah. We don't have any like two new cars, but I remember my dad rented out a Mercedes A-Class, like one of the little um coupes or whatever. And he was like, "Oh, this is a nice car. Like, test drive it around the block before I return it." And I was taking a Snapchat and I was like, "Hey guys, look, new car." And the car started talking back and I just screamed because I didn't expect it. Because it freaked me out. Like my car, I used to drive an '07 RAV4. It was the exact same thing where the most intelligent thing in the car was me, and even that's questionable at times. But like when the car talks back to you, I'm like, what the hell? This is like it's fully responding, and that's kind of terrifying. But I agree, yeah, a lot of that technology, I think, makes people a lot lazier, and it's like, yeah, it's convenient, but then you start relying on it too much, and then you get too lazy, and you're just I've been involved in a lot of close calls where people just don't check their blind spots, but I can see that little triangle on your mirror and it's lit up because your car senses that there's another car there, but you're not
But
even
you,
looking at that. Like you're fully super lazy to do anything about it. So it's kind
so
of scary to see where technology is going to an extent.
tying it back to photography a little bit, have you ever read about or seen or used any of those like Arsenal devices or anything like that, where it's like that AI computer that you could plug into the camera, where like when you take a photo, it'll automatically make it better, so you don't have to even think. You just like be like, I want a picture of that, and you take a picture of it, and it just automatically makes it
No, I
better.
haven't used that.
Okay, I was just curious your thoughts on that because like I kind of feel the same way about like the car stuff with a thing like that, where it's just like that takes all the fun out of it of like why have like an AI thing do all the work to make the picture better instead of like learning how to do that and like being able to make it myself and be like, yeah, I did this, not just be like, well, I held the thing and I pointed it and pushed a button and then the
Yeah.
computer did the rest.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I think it takes the fun out of it and just honestly and truly defeats the purpose of things. Because if you're
yeah,
driving, yeah, obviously not every car is made to, have fun and driving, but you should still be in there driving it. You should still be putting some train of thought into that. And I think same goes for
absolutely.
photography. I think photography
You should
started off,
pre-
sorry?
you should still be present in that moment.
Exactly. And I think for photography, it's the same thing. And I think that ultimately was the reason why I fell in love with film photography because it really made me stop and slow down for the photos and really put in the effort and do more work and be more present within the moment to really capture that moment. And a lot of the times it would just be impossible with a digital camera to do something like that because again, you get lazy. That technology is there. You can edit it. You can, really make your photo better after. And you can still do that with film, but I actually choose just not to edit any of my photos unless it's like a crop and straighten kind of situation. But I think ultimately going into the more old school ways and shooting manual is also interesting and it really puts a different perspective to photography.
Well, so here's an interesting thing too with that is there's a lot of people that have sort of like that purist approach and mentality of things where it's like film is better because like you just take the photo and you don't edit it and it's like it's more pure that way. But when you actually look at like some of the great old school photographers out there, like I'm gonna pick on Ansel Adams for a minute. Um, Not a single one of Ansel Adams' photos was straight out of the camera. Like all of his work was like he was a darkroom master. So
Mm-hmm.
like in today's time, he would be like a Photoshop master. It's like
Mm-hmm.
everything that made an Ansel Adams photo special and amazing, that all happened in the darkroom. And like if you look at his actual film photos, they were kind of like they weren't anything
Mm-hmm.
impressive. Um, but he would like brighten them up and make them more interesting and bring them to life in the darkroom. And I think that might be a bit of a misnomer that some people don't realize with film photography is that um, there isn't wrong with some editing. Like a lot of the greats did edit their work,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a big part of the process.
Yeah. I think, um, yeah, I guess it's up to everybody to do what they prefer, and every medium has their own things. And I'm not against people editing their photos. I'm not against people just shooting and, posting it straight out of the camera. You have so many different options
Yeah,
for that. I think at the end of the day, it's whatever you like and it's whatever, makes you happy and whatever, if you feel like that photo truly, I guess, brings out what you wanted to do then, and what you were hoping to capture, then I think that's what matters the most. I think with film, I found that personally it was a nice kind of step backwards because I didn't have to edit the photos because I was just so
mm-hmm.
happy that they captured exactly what I wanted to capture, and it's only ever a matter of like straighten and like cropping things here and there for me. But
And that's how I feel about film too,
yeah,
honestly.
I think it's nice to keep it as is, but I think yeah, certain photos you kind of have to edit if you want to bring out what you were hoping to bring out and unfortunately just couldn't capture it with the film for whatever reason. But yeah, I think just letting people it's art. I think people should do just whatever they feel best with it. If that's how they want
Absolutely.
to express themselves, whether it's editing, not editing, as long as it's bringing you happiness and it's bringing you joy and it's something that you enjoy doing and it's expressing what you want to express, then I think that's what matters at the end of the day the most.
I agree with that 100%. Like people should just do what they find like inspiring and interesting and what they're driven to, and not have it be criticized on, well, you didn't do this technique perfectly or you didn't do that. It's like, well, did you have fun, and do you like it?
Yeah,
Like, if it's yes to both of those questions, then who fucking cares if
yeah,
some person on the internet or like guy with cameras like, you didn't follow the rules absolutely, and yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That was that was an interesting moment for me and film photography and going from digital to film because when I first started shooting film, so I think I was just really tired of digital and just didn't enjoy it. I wasn't inspired by it at all. And posting photos anywhere just seemed very like terrifying in a way and very like uncomfortable because it's like, oh, what are people gonna say? What if someone comments this? What if someone comments that? And this was like university time and it just felt like kind of scary to post anything at the moment. And then when I started shooting film, the first few rolls I ever got, I just had them printed, and I'm pretty sure I'm stupid enough to have asked them to destroy the negatives because I didn't realize that you could get them like rescanned and reprinted or put into digital. And that's how I did film photography for the first bit. It was just physical photos, and then I realized I don't have space to keep all the photos.
Mm.
So I slowly went into digital, and then for about 2 years, like I'd send my friends their photos, whether it was like their car or portrait, anything like that. And like my close friend group, I do like a little photo dump in our group chat whenever, I'd get a photo back from our time hanging out together. And I'd show my photos to people, and some people were like, "Oh, you should start like an account, you should post this somewhere." And it was always this like terrifying idea. And I've never had like a traumatic experience of anyone being like, "This is horrible, your work is shit, like you're a horrible artist." But I think like something in the back of my head was always like, "Oh, maybe it's not good enough to post, and maybe this, maybe that." And then eventually, like even when we met in Vancouver, I didn't even have this account. And eventually I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm just gonna start it. I'm just gonna post whatever I can and whatever I want to. And it's been a nice experience. It's nice. Not like not a lot of people know about it, just my close friends, but it's still nice to like have that ability to just express myself. And it's like I don't care how many likes it gets, I don't care how many followers I have. It's just me sharing what I shoot. If someone likes it, then amazing. If people don't, then that's fine too.
Well, and that's such an important way to look at it, because like I I was having dinner with this random dude that I just met through a friend recently, and he shoots film, and he's driving across Canada right now from like New Brunswick to, he's like in Tofino right now, and my friend's like, "Oh, you need to meet this guy. He's like this film shooter, and like, he does really cool stuff." And I look on his Instagram, and there's like not a single thing of film on there. And when we were having food, he was like talking about like how much he shoots, and like, how much he loves it. And I was like, "Well, you haven't shared any of it though. Like, there's none. Like, it doesn't seem like you shoot any film." But like, he's like, "Yeah, I shoot film like every day." He's like, "But none of it's good enough to share." And I was just like, well, why? Like, why do you think that? He's like, well, it's not good enough yet. And I'm like, well, do you like any of them? He's like, yeah, I love a lot of them. It's like, okay. And like, you enjoy doing it. He's like, yeah. Then why isn't it good enough? He's like, are you comparing yourself to other people? He's like, no, I'm not comparing myself to other people. But then we start talking more, and it's like, he's totally comparing himself to other people. And I was like, it'd be even bigger shame of like, if you were to, like, if you just opened up an Instagram and started sharing your stuff right now, and like it didn't really hit, and like, whatever, like, people didn't really like it. Would be a bigger shame though than that, is if you like got hit by a bus on this road trip and you died, and no one ever got to see anything that you ever created, and it just like died with you.
Hmm.
Like, how much would that suck? And he was like, yeah. If my like he's like if I did die and my mom like opened up my Lightroom, she would be blown away by this stuff that I've taken.
Hmm.
I'm like, well, if you feel that like she'd be blown away by it, then why don't you think other people would? Like,
Exactly.
give it a shot, you know?
Well, hopefully he posts some of his work. It's
I hope so.
it's tough, I find, being an artist, even as somebody doing it for a hobby. And I think I experienced like the same thing when I was a kid, and I used to paint, and I went to like a um, sort of like an art school, like art classes. And I remember looking at other people's work, and I was like, huh, like my work sucks so much compared to other people. But it was like I have fun doing it though, so I guess that's a plus. And ultimately, that was one of the reasons why I stepped away from drawing and painting and everything like that, because I was like, my work just sucks, and I just felt like uninspired to do it.
Yeah.
And it was a similar thing that I experienced with photography, and I think ultimately a lot of people experience that, but having that in the back of your head, knowing that you're just sharing what you're enjoying, and it's not meant to be for everybody, and that's fine. And whoever likes it, and you have your own little following, and people like your photos, and you're like, oh, that's so nice. I appreciate that you like my work. I don't care if you're my third like or like my, I don't know, 3,003rd like, but it's nice. Like you appreciate my work, and I appreciate you for appreciating my work, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a nice feeling, but it's a tough thing, I think. It's a tough block to overcome for a lot of people, and yeah, it's
It
not
really is.
easy.
But the thing that's nice is, like you mentioned earlier, the film community is such an open and welcoming community that, if you're going to take a chance, take a risk anywhere, this is the place to do it.
I agree. I completely agree. I think people are just very, very kind and very polite within the community. Obviously, you get some people here and there that are, you know, they think they're up here and everybody else is below them, and that's fine. That's their own perspective on things. But
Yeah,
it's a
ask
great
them.
community where people are just so like happy to share their knowledge, and not in a way where it's like, oh, you suck, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing that. I know better because I've shot for a longer period of time than you. It's like, hey, there's this, and you could also try this, and you could try that. I actually like this method, but you can choose whatever option works best for you. And it's nice to like have that mindset within a community. It's very different from other, I guess, communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very cool community, and I'm glad you're part of it.
Thank you. Well, it was awesome meeting you. It was super like unexpected at Othello
Yeah,
tunnels, because it's not common that I have people like realizing what camera I have, and it was so unique because I've followed Northern Film Collective for about a year already, and I've known about it. And when you said that, I was like, holy shit, this is insane. Like it was such a like random like place and time kind of meeting, but it was like very like, wow, what the fuck? Like that was so unexpected.
so you're gonna submit some photos for this year?
For sure, I'd love to.
Awesome. Be great to have you in the book.
Yeah, it would honestly mean the world to me to be part of something like that, because again, like I said, I never shared my work, and it was always, I enjoyed it being a private thing and like my own kind of little world. Um, but it's nice to be able to share with people now, and a like-minded community. That's so great. So I'm definitely excited to submit some of my
Well,
work.
and then your family and friends will have the opportunity to buy a book and like have you
Yeah,
for
yeah.
eternity.
I'm trying to force my mom to get some photos of mine printed and put it around the house. And I'm like, don't you just love your daughter enough to post her work everywhere and have like a gallery at home? And she's like, we'll figure it out later.
Just get Downtown Camera does a really good job at printing, and their print costs are cheap. So you should just pick some of your favorite ones, get them printed, and then just
Just put them
put them up
around.
yourself.
I wanted
Yeah,
to do
exactly.
that in my area as well. just kind of have a collection of my favorite photos, but I'm like, Mom, why don't you just want my best work around the house? I have all these great photos that I could share. I'm like, why do you want a random photo of some like shitty flower from Winners when you have like all these artworks for me? And she's like, well, just
Like, you have this raw talent right here,
yeah.
Mom.
I'm like, you have a superstar in the house. Why won't you share my talent with the world?
I'm a peacock. Let me fly.
Yeah, exactly. But
That's
yeah,
amazing. Well, I hope that you can convince your mother to finally put up some of your work.
yeah. Well, we'll see. I started creating a file of some of my favorite personal works, and I hope to create sort of a photography wall and have that in my home to look at. It's a nice,
That'd be very
it'd be nice to see.
well. It was really nice to meet you, also.
Yeah, it was a
And
pleasure.
but I do need to take off here because it's supposed to meet a friend for dinner here. But it has been so awesome chatting with you. And if I end up in Toronto anytime soon, once COVID pipes down, I'll definitely let you know. It'd be fun to go shooting.
Sounds good. It was a pleasure meeting you too, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk. It was very, very fun and exciting.
No problem. I hope it's not the last time you get to talk to the film community out there.
I
So
hope so
thank you
too.
so much.
Thank you so much, Merlin. I appreciate it. You have a great night.
You too. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I love and appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Next week, I'm going to have Han Fan on here. She's a fantastic portrait photographer from the Bay Area and a bit of a fan favorite that a bunch of you have been bugging me to have on there on the chat. So we'll be having her on next week. So looking forward to seeing all you guys next week. And thanks for tuning in tonight. Stay safe out there.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Y'all, bye.